Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. I can't tell you how intimidating it is to follow Jeff Foxworthy and Frankie Grande. So please just lower your expectations for this part and we'll be good. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual event. I have to say, it's so tough to be at home and not with all of you at one of the most fun evenings of the year. I miss seeing you, and I really miss the hugs. Do you even remember hugs? Anyway, hopefully we'll all be back together again in person in May of 2021. I have to say a huge thank you to our new friends, Jonathan Quisenberry and Michael Maddox out in LA, who have poured into pulling together something so special for us to present to you tonight. And Frankie Grande, Constantine Morales, and the whole Rock of Ages team who really opened their hearts and embraced Cure in our mission. I'm not kidding when I say we wouldn't be doing this but for them. So thank you guys. I think we all would agree that life looks a lot different right now than any of us could have ever expected. I mean, who could have predicted a global pandemic to hit and completely disrupt every aspect of life? For families of children with cancer, COVID-19 has been a pretty devastating blow, on top of an already pretty devastating blow. For the families we serve, the impact was swift and immediate, as states and counties were trying to figure out what to do with quarantine and shutdown mandates. Our families were already grappling with the harsh reality of COVID-19 and what it might mean for their children with compromised immune systems. Early in March, before millions of layoffs and furloughs took hold, our parents were having to make tough decisions about whether to go to work and earn income, but possibly be exposed to COVID-19, or stay at home and forgo the income. Loss of work and income has been tough on them, as it has for millions of people during this pandemic, but it's only one layer of hardship our families have been facing. The Cure community immediately stepped up with support to enable us to help our families through this time. In just 3 months, we've been able to help more than 130 families with rent, medical bills, utilities, and similar expenses. Since the facilities near the hospital have been forced to close, we've covered more than 50 nights of hotel stays for families who travel for treatment. We've delivered 3,500 boxed meals and nearly 700 snack bags to parents holed up in hospital rooms with their child, either unable to leave to get meals or afraid to leave for fear of exposure to COVID-19. And we've provided more than 115 counseling sessions to patients, their siblings, and parents struggling to cope with today's very difficult realities. We're so grateful for the support of so many donors who've made this possible. While COVID-19 has created additional hardship for the families whose children are fighting cancer, the reality is that new families are being thrown into this world every single day. There are new diagnoses, relapses, and children who have passed away. There are end-of-treatment celebrations too, and we need to stop and really cherish those successes. But man, the loss of a child hits hard. Our hearts are shattered with every little life that's ended by this brutal disease. And that's why we can't stop with the efforts to advance treatments. It's hard to ask people for financial support at a time when so many are facing hardship. But we can't wait for the pandemic to be over and done with, because in that time, thousands of children will be diagnosed and hundreds will die. If it's about to be my child, I don't want 1 second of delay in progress. I imagine you'd feel the same if it was about to be yours. So, coronavirus or not, we have to have a believe ball however we can have it, and we will be grateful for any support at any level. So please participate in our silent auction and consider donating, because we must raise the money we need to keep the research machine working, even while our world works through this pandemic. From a research standpoint, our highest priority is our precision medicine initiative, which we believe represents a tremendous opportunity to change outcomes for children with cancer, especially those whose cancer is high risk and difficult to treat. So, what is precision medicine? Well, precision medicine involves looking at the genetic changes in a child's tumor and pinpointing which changes are driving tumor growth and impacting treatment response. Once doctors know what those genetic drivers are, they work to individualize treatments and use very targeted drugs to treat the child's cancer. This approach is in contrast to existing treatment protocols that define cancers mainly according to their location and use toxic drugs to kill cells in a much less targeted, less efficient way. I bet we all have enough experience with cancer to know that chemotherapy, while often life-saving, is tough. Chemo kills all rapidly growing cells, including healthy cells, and it can have terrible long-term effects, including heart and liver damage, damage to the endocrine system, neurological effects. It can cause secondary cancers and more. Because of these harmful effects, we don't want our children to have any chemotherapy that isn't absolutely necessary. So having a way to predict how well drugs will work before they're given is key to both making sure kids are given the best treatments and not toxic chemotherapy they might not need or that isn't likely to work. Kids like Maylee. Maylee was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in September of 2015. At the time of diagnosis, precision medicine and genetic testing wasn't available. So Maylee was given the standard treatment for acute myeloid leukemia, which meant she was hospitalized and treated with very aggressive chemotherapy for 7 months before she was declared cancer-free and able to go home. Maylee was cancer-free for about 2 years, but in June of 2018, her cancer returned. Fortunately, just a year earlier, Cure had funded a new precision medicine program at the Aflac Cancer Center of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where Maylee was treated, and her doctors had a new tool in their toolbox. They mapped the genes of Maylee's leukemia and discovered that she had a very specific protein-coding gene. This was a really important finding because doctors know this gene predisposes people to developing leukemia. They also know that bone marrow transplants work very well for children who have this gene. So, in September of 2018, Maylee underwent a bone marrow transplant, and I'm happy to say she's doing well today. Here's what's so important to understand. Maylee got the most advanced care she could have in 2015 when she was diagnosed. At the time, gene mapping wasn't available. But if it had been, and the gene had been discovered at diagnosis, Maylee would have gone straight to bone marrow transplant rather than undergoing 7 months of grueling, toxic chemotherapy. Thankfully, research had progressed by the time she relapsed, and Cure's funding enabled doctors to map her genes and treat her successfully when her cancer returned. We can't let COVID-19 interrupt our ability to fund this program and enable doctors to have the important genetic information at diagnosis, not years later after toxic treatment has been given and cancer returns. Maylee is why we're here tonight, so we can raise the money needed to continue this critical genetic testing and allow the incredible doctors who care for these children to have the information they need up front at diagnosis, not 2 years later when a relapse occurs. We are here because every child deserves the most advanced care possible. So thank you again for joining us. Back to you, Jeff.